everyone. Thanks for joining me today. I'd like to talk about 12 issues that I think are very important issues as regards to the NKT that make the NKT a dangerous, high control sectarian cult. Let's see. Number one, these are not in order of importance, just in the order that they came to me. I think it's up to each one of us to decide the order of importance here. So I would say that the first one is this extreme dependence and personal worship of the founder, Kelsang Gyatso, who the members call Geshe. Let's remember that he was not a Geshe. He never sat his Geshe exam. So members of the NKT consider him a third Buddha, omniscient. There are several facts that contradict this claim that he was not actually omniscient. If Kelsang Gyatso is Buddha, then he is also beyond karma, which would not explain why he was hidden for so many years from sight by the NKT. It is theorized that he was sick. He had some kind of very big health issue, mental issues that would contradict the claim that Kelsang Gyatso is a third Buddha. To be fair, extreme reliance on the Guru is part of the Mahayana tradition, and it is part of the teachings, Guru devotion, Guru yoga, and so on and so forth. These are real, but I think these scriptures and these teachings must be somehow adapted to the modern Western audience. Because in the West, studying with a spiritual teacher is completely different from the situation in the East, where most of the students are ordained monks and nuns, and they've been doing this ever since they were little kids. It's part of their culture. So this kind of guru reliance is alien from our Western sentiments and culture. And so I think it needs to be adapted to Western situations. This is something that never happened in the NKT. Quite the contrary, we see a kind of cultic devotion towards this person that most NKT members have actually never met in their lives. So the Hungarian psychiatrist, let me check the name here, Dr. Ivan Basarmányi Nagy, I'm pronouncing this in a Hungarian way, actually looked at the teacher-student relationship and how it should be adapted to the Western situation. And he actually looks at the aims and expectations of the relationship of each party, the roles and levels of commitment they take, and the psychological factors affecting the relationship. Then he asks the following questions. Do the student and teacher together form a good or bad team? A team in which both bring out the best abilities in each other, or which hinders each other's abilities? Or a team which wastes each other's time because of different expectations? Or a team in which a hierarchic structure is maintained and in which the student feels exploited, controlled, and thus inferior, reinforcing low self-esteem, and the teacher feels him or herself to be the authority and superior? Or a team in which one or both feel inspired or drained? So I think these are really interesting questions here and points by which we could look at the teacher-student relationship in the NKT, how teachers feel, why people feel that they want to teach and they want to get on that pedestal and throne in front of the Buddhas and tell everybody what the Dharma is all about, and how that makes a person, individual feel, and how that makes the students feel, and how that impacts the dynamic of the relationship. The second reason why I consider the NKT a dangerous organization is this tendency to cover up, whitewash, deny, or lie about their past and present. There are several teachers who have disappeared recently, even teachers who've been there from the very beginning of the NKT. Nobody knows where they are, what happened to them, what's going on. We have information, I'm not going to talk about this now, why they have disappeared. But the average population, the average NKT membership have no information, they are not informed. Just it seems to me that there is an utter lack of accountability in the organization towards its members. The next problem is the lack of a safeguarding system. A safeguarding system is something that should be enforced and monitored by a third party that is independent of the NKT, because within the NKT this system cannot work. It is impossible that they are truly going to take care of issues. I have talked to many members who have written letters or tried to deal with issues through the safeguarding system, and I'm saying that in quotation marks, the safeguarding system that exists within the NKT, and they got exactly nowhere. So they need a system that is independent from the NKT, an outside organization who oversees what's going on and where people can turn to if they feel that there is some issue or there's been some kind of misconduct on the part of the organization. The fourth issue is the dumbing down of the Dharma itself. So every time they publish a book, it's going to be a little bit different. It's going to be a little bit simplified compared to the previous edition. Already, some of the teachings have been a little bit twisted and watered down to fit the NKT agenda, to make people stay with the NKT, stay in the organization. Also appropriating Dorje Shugden, who is originally a Gelug protector of the Gelug sect. His figure has been greatly whitewashed and appropriated to the NKT's own needs and even elevated to Buddha status. The next problem with the NKT is the constant proselytizing, soliciting people to attend teachings, and then once they're there, tricking them into taking tantric empowerments. Normally, tantric empowerments require a lot of preparations, years of study before a person is ready to get on the path of the tantric teachings. Without these preparations, tantric practice can be ineffective in the best of cases and create problems, psychological issues, psychosis in the worst of cases. Number 6 is the complete lack of the Vinaya, of the precepts that Buddhist monks and nuns must take. The Vinaya is a very important part of the Dharmapada, which is completely eliminated from the NKT ordination process and is replaced by 10-point vow, list of vows, which is actually quite similar to just being a good Buddhist practitioner, except for restraining sexual activity. The Vinaya originally contains over 200 rules and regulations for the monks, and the NKT ordination vows, like I said, contain only 10. Also, this idea that anyone can ordain in the NKT, a lot of people do without actually having any deep preparation or help or support, because ordaining in the NKT is actually encouraged. And a lot of people feel that if they want to be really effective bodhisattvas, they need to ordain. What happens there, though, is that once a person is ordained and wears those robes, those Tibetan robes, the others look at them as somehow someone with more experience, more knowledge, more basis in Buddhism. But that's actually not necessarily true. Usually it's not true. Like I said, anyone can ordain. I knew a person in my center who started attending in September. By the next summer, in the next ordination ceremony, he was right there. Like just in a few short months, he made a decision, went through the process to become an ordained monk in the NKT. By contrast, in other Buddhist organizations, it takes years and years and years to become a Buddhist monk, and you are tested along the way several times to see if your resolution to become a Buddhist monk is serious or not. The next issue, number 7, is this idea that there is a top to bottom control over what happens in the NKT, but the actual construction of the centers happens from bottom up. So what this means is that even though the centers are created by well-meaning individuals using their own resources, their own personal resources to rent or buy, to fix up a center, everything else that happens in that center, the permission to function, the overseeing of the teachings, the overseeing of the general activities, and even the decision to close down the center and withdraw the resident teacher is all of these decisions are made by the mother center, the central management of the NKT, which then obviously leads to the issue that a lot of people, and I know people like that in person who have told me their stories, a lot of people lose their money, their deposit, the money that they put down for the centers, the money that they have invested in the centers. There is no democratic process by which a center may decide to stay open and continue its activity if the mother center decides to close down the center. Also, these centers work in a way that all the money, all the profit that is generated is then sent to the mother center. So there is no money set aside for a rainy day if there is any problem. And that is the reason why, if there is any situation emerging, like there was the COVID period, a lot of centers had to close down because they simply didn't have any money set aside for a rainy day where they could have just continued to function. And that, for example, happened in Italy, where I live. The number 8, I must mention these aggressive marketing campaigns that target people with this idea that once you're in the NKT, you're going to find happiness, you're going to be able to deal with your anxiety and depression. They often use material that encourage people to consider the NKT as a way to help with these mental issues. The basic idea in the NKT is that mental problems like depression or anxiety or some other mental issues are simple problems of self-cherishing, self-attachment, self-importance. And obviously the cure is to work for all sentient beings within the NKT and practice Kadam Dharma, and that is going to take care of all these problems and all these issues. And the next point, number 9, is kind of connected to this. Once the person is sucked into the NKT, they are often taught spiritual bypassing, not recognizing, not giving importance to individual emotions. This idea of not having permission to feel anger and to work through one's anger or other negative emotions. If a person has health issues or mental health issues, it's usually their karma. They're not necessarily encouraged to look for professional help or medical help for these issues. Of course, I want to say that I am generalizing here, and I am sure that there are many NKT teachers who do not operate like this, who do tell people with problems to find help and medical help and professional help, but this is still, in general, a problem in the NKT. Point number 10 is the books. This is a contentious issue. NKT maintains that they do not require members to only read Kelsang Gyatso's books, but the fact is that in the NKT, only Kelsang Gyatso's books are available. Only Kelsang Gyatso's books are taught. Every teacher is required to memorize the books and then recite the books during the teachings. And during the classes, you are absolutely discouraged to bring examples from other authors than Kelsang Gyatso. So I would say that if you are just a normal member of the NKT and you decide to read some other books as well, that's no problem. But just don't talk about it in the center, because that is not going to be received well by the management or by a resident teacher. And if you are a resident teacher, then only teach Kelsang Gyatso's books, because if you read other books and you are influenced by other authors and you bring that into your teachings, that is going to be frowned upon, or you will be eliminated. And that already connects us to point number 11, and this is the quality of the teachings. Because the NKT needs to expand, and this is its number one priority, a lot of people are encouraged to teach Dharma even after a very short period of time, even when they don't feel ready, even when they are actually not ready. At first, one teaches meditation, and then it goes on from there. If they show promise, or if the center really needs them, then they might be sent to other cities in the orbit of the main center to give, and I use again air quotes, teachings to other people. So what happens here is that a lot of the teachers, and I would actually venture to say most of the teachers in the NKT, really don't know so much more about the Dharma than the people that they are teaching. They may be just one chapter ahead of the general population. But I remember when I was involved in the NKT, I asked my teacher about this, because I was shocked. There were these young kids, like 18, 19-year-olds, who were sent out to teach the Dharma. And I was like, these kids don't even have life experience, let alone, Dharma experience. Like what's going on here? Like, I just didn't understand. And I was told, oh, well, but they've got the book, and, Geshe-la is speaking through them. So, but even if you have the book, and even if you have memorized the book, in my experience of the Dharma, it just takes such a long time to actually metabolize the teachings, understand the teachings, and for the penny to drop. It really takes, at least to me, it took a long time, and I do think it takes a long time in general. These teachings, even the most basic Buddhist teachings, are not, they sound simple, but they're really not simple, and they're even more difficult to live accordingly. So in order to teach the Dharma, and I've been practicing for so long, but I would still not feel ready to teach the Dharma. It's something that takes, I think, a long time. So yeah, this is definitely an issue. People go to these Dharma centers. You basically don't know whether your teacher is actually teaching something that is true Dharma, or real, or makes sense, or something that he or she even doesn't understand. And finally, point number 12, splitting off from the rest of the Tibetan Buddhist community. The NKT is very isolated. They are not viewed well by other Buddhist groups, by and large, in general. Also because there were all these years when the NKT was bad-mouthing other teachers, and the Dalai Lama himself, stalking the Dalai Lama, following him around the globe, demonstrating against him, and organizing aggressive online smear campaigns against him. And I'm not going to go into why the NKT was doing this, because it's not important at this point. I think what's important, that it's been done, and it was done for many, many years. And so now the NKT is viewed by other Buddhist groups as some kind of a weird Buddhist sort of cult. A lot of them don't even consider them Buddhist, on the fringes, So it's not like a mainstream Buddhist organization, and it's not integrated at all into the larger Tibetan Buddhist community. So I think these are the 12 points that I felt it was worth mentioning. And let me know what you think in the comments. I really am, I'd like to say this, I'm really doing this because I think, and my hope is that the NKT will slowly change something. I mean, they can't change the past, right? But they can come clean, for example. They can be open about it, or they can change change things like being more tolerant with other authors, about mixing traditions, or setting up a well-functioning and independent safeguarding system, or making ordination a little bit more difficult so that people would have time to figure out if they actually want to be on this path or not, or creating a more democratic system where the people who actually create the center from the bottom, from, like these grassroots movements that create centers, would have a bigger say and bigger power in what happens to the center, and a possibility for them to retain some of the money that is sent to the mother center, so that they can prepare for any eventualities when they need extra money or they need to invest in new things. So it wouldn't always be just constantly asking members for more money. And finally, I would just like to mention one more thing, which I think is important. So 12 plus 1, and this is taking care of the teachers, those resident teachers who have given years and decades of their lives to making Kadam Dharma flourish around the world. And not just teachers, but also other people who've been working on construction sites for decades and just working for the NKT. Often these people can't even afford to go to a festival. When they get old or sick and are unable to teach, they are just simply removed. They don't have any sort of a health insurance or social security. They're completely on their own. And so I think it would be very kind of the NKT to think about taking care of its own, basically. Thank you very much for your attention.